Centennial students shocked about what happened, that one of their classmates could be charged with such a serious offense. One girl that we spoke with knew Anthony pretty well, that she says, and told us this.
I'm in shock because it's like, I wouldn't expect that from him. I only know him fighting and stuff, like, you know, but to take someone's life is just like a different level.
Everybody, I pray that you're doing well, and I pray that you have a fabulous week. All right, so the tragic death of Austin Metcalf, a white teenager from Frisco, Texas, has gained national attention. Police have arrested and charged 17-year-old, a black kid, Karmelo Anthony, with his murder. First, my deepest condolences go out to the Metcalf family and their loved ones. Let's take a moment of silence to honor their pain and loss. Now, I also want to acknowledge the heartbreak of the Anthony family and those who love him. This is a devastating moment for both families. There were no winners and will be no winners in this tragedy. This is pain for everybody who are involved in this matter, on either side. I've been here so many times. Now, my law practice is based in Dallas County, which is just about 30 to 40 minutes south of Collin County, where this matter took place and where it will be adjudicated. I have personally and with other attorneys tried multiple murder cases, including one in Collin County, in that very same courthouse. So I speak from both a legal and local experience. I bring that perspective to this. Now, let me talk a little bit about Collin County. It is very different from Dallas County. It is an affluent suburban county. The median household income is about $127,000. And the median home value up there is about $475,000. And about 57% of the citizens in Collin County own their own home. So this is a very different county than Dallas County. Now, regarding the racial demographics, whites are about 50% of the population up there. Asians make up about 20% of the population. Hispanics make up about 16% of the population, and blacks around 11.5%. This is all based on census data. Now, in terms of the court system up there, Collin County is politically conservative, and it's often referred to as Trump country. So it is very red up there. It is the home of Ken Paxton, our Attorney General here in Texas. Now, that said, I've never felt like when we've done cases up there, and we've done so many cases in Collin County, I've never felt like I or our client was mistreated in any way. We didn't feel like there was any racism going on. And we know, of course, racism is systemic. It's in, the systems and the institutions of America. But again, as far as dealing with people personally and individually, I cannot say that I remember an incident in Collin County or in the Collin County courthouse where I felt singled out because of my race or my clients. That said, a young black defendant like Karmelo Anthony will face a jury pool, if his case goes to trial, that does not reflect his racial background. And that's going to be something that his legal team will have to deal with. The fact that most of the jury pool, the 65 folks who will come into their courthouse during their trial, and they're going to have to pick the jury from those 65 people, and they're not going to be heavily African American, like it would be if you were in Dallas, for example. All right? Speaking of Karmelo's legal representation, his legal team, I don't know them personally, but one's name is Billy Clark, and the other one is Kim Cole. Billy Clark recently ran for judge. He was not elected, but he ran for judge. And Kim Cole is known for her work with several high-profile civil rights cases. Okay? So Karmelo is in capable hands. He has strong advocates, and I am certain that they're going to fight for him and give him the zealous representation that he is entitled to. Now, Karmelo is facing a murder charge, right, under Texas law. And since he is 17 years of age, he's automatically treated as an adult, and this will not be a juvenile case. He will be treated as an adult in adult court. However, prosecutors must present his case to a Collin County grand jury so that the grand jury can review the evidence in this case and determine whether there is probable cause to indict Karmelo. Okay? Just because there is a pending murder charge doesn't mean that the grand jury is going to indict him. But based on all that I've read, they likely will find probable cause to issue what we call a true bill of indictment. Now, there is an arrest record that has been made public, an arrest report, and I want you to remember that that is not final and it's not evidence. It is the investigation that the police and likely detectives did in this case, but that's not evidence. That's not evidence. It's biased. It's the police's perspective. It's the state's perspective. Moreover, the report itself is what we call hearsay. And what's in it is hearsay. So it's what we call double hearsay. All right, so it does not come in the trial unless it's used for some other reason than to prove the truth of the matter asserted. If prosecutors want to use the report to prove the truth of the matter asserted, it should not come in. But they can use it for other reasons. For example, if one of the police officers who is mentioned in the report needs his or her memory refreshed, then the prosecutors can use it that way, for example. All right, but they cannot use it to prove the truth of the matter asserted. That would be a hearsay violation. All right, now, I actually want to go to the arrest report, and I want to read a few things from it, okay? Let's go over there. So here we have Karmelo Sincere Anthony, age 17. He is 5'9", he weighs 130 pounds, so he's a small kid. He's a small, skinny little kid, okay? I'm sorry that he's in this situation, and I'm certainly sorry that the Metcalf lost a son. This is tragic all the way around. So we see here that Karmelo is charged with murder under Texas Penal Code 19.02. All right, and we're going to talk about what that means in just a moment. But right now, I want us to read a few things that I have highlighted here. On April 2nd, 2025, at 10:01 hours, that's 10 o'clock in the morning, I, Staley School Resource Officer E. Cortez, heard over the radio dispatch call out a stabbing call at David Kuykendall Stadium. FPD, that's Frisco PD, call notes indicated that an athlete was stabbed. The suspect was reported as being a black male wearing a gray hoodie and blue sweatpants. Now, I want to show you something here that may not mean anything, but it stood out to me when I read this. So just underscore that he made a note that the suspect is a black male. I immediately left my office and ran across the Staley Middle School parking lot towards a southwest entrance into the stadium. As I entered the stadium, 2 high school age students informed me that the victim was on the north end of stadium by the bleachers under Memorial High School tent. In parentheses, he got, I did not identify these students. So there was no mentioning of their race. Okay, there's no mentioning of their race. Next, I proceeded towards the north end of the stadium, visitors' side, on foot. As I got closer to the north end, I could see the Memorial High School tent with multiple individuals under the tent. Once I arrived into the north side bleachers, an adult male who was on the track pointed out the suspect. I was not able to identify that witness. So here on two separate occasions, he didn't write. He wrote adult male. He didn't write Hispanic adult male. He didn't write white adult male. He didn't write for the two high school students above, one white, one Hispanic, one black. No, he just identified the race of the suspect in this case. That may have been nothing, but it certainly does stand out to me. All right, let's keep reading. Now we're going to get into some very important legal lessons that I want to share with you here. So he goes on to say, I gave the suspect instructions to keep his hands up in the air. All right, so he had the suspect, who was Karmelo Anthony. He says, I gave basically Karmelo instructions to keep his hands up in the air. So Karmelo had his hands up. During this time, the suspect said verbally out loud, I was protecting myself. Now, let's go back. I point out that the officer said he instructed Karmelo to keep his hands up in the air. That means that he had Karmelo detained. He wasn't arrested, but he was detained. He was detained. Now, the reason I bring that up, and this is what we have to do when we're representing people, we have to go through each line of these reports and the discovery that we get, and we got to pick them apart. So he had the young man with his hands up. That means that young man was not free to leave. He was detained. And because he was detained, what he should have done, what the officer should have done, was read him his Miranda warning. His Miranda warnings. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. One will be appointed you if you can't afford it. All right? That's what he should have done. Because notice what happens. During this time, the suspect said verbally out loud, quote, I was protecting myself, close quote. Well, had the officer read him the Miranda warning, listen to it again. You have the right to remain silent. That would have triggered, it could have triggered in Karmelo's mind that he probably doesn't need to say anything because you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say will and can be used against you. But this was a kid, a 17-year-old kid, absolutely did not understand, right, that he could be quiet. And it was the responsibility of this officer to tell him that you have the right to remain silent. You have the right to a lawyer. Any and everything you say, we're going to use against you. If you don't have money for a lawyer, you will be given one. See, that motto would have caused young Karmelo to keep his mouth shut, but he didn't. So he said, I was protecting myself. And I bring that up. Let me just say this. I bring all of this up to say that if this was our client, and I'm sure Mr. Clark and Miss Cole will be thinking along these lines as well, we would file a motion to suppress these statements on the basis that Karmelo's constitutional rights were violated. His Fifth Amendment right to remain silent was violated because the cop failed to do what he was legally obligated to do under Supreme Court precedent, which is once he detained him to read him his Miranda warnings. Okay? All right. It should be noted that I had not questioned him about the incident when he made that comment. Now that would be their argument. That's going to be their argument if a motion to suppress comes up, which is I didn't read him his Miranda warnings because I had not begun to interrogate him. Well, we would say that doesn't matter. We would still argue. In fact, I've gotten, I remember a huge case where they did the same thing to our client. I got that case dismissed because the officer did the very same thing. And our client confessed to the incident. But we got that confession, that statement, we got all that thrown out of court. And the case then was dismissed because that was the only evidence they had. I'm not saying that in this case. I'm not saying that what Karmelo said is the only evidence in this case. I don't know that to be true. Okay, from what's in this report, there were witnesses. So I don't know, and I'm not going to get a lot into the facts because I just don't know. All I have is this arrest report, and that's the police's side. That's those other witnesses' side. I can't. I've been doing this too long. I will not put a whole lot of credence into this report. But I want to read this part to teach you all. Okay, if you are detained, they should read you your Miranda warnings. But even if you don't have, even if they haven't read you your Miranda warnings, you need to know that you have the right to be quiet, and you need to be quiet. You don't need to say anything. Anything. If you have children, juveniles that the police want to talk to, no. You have a Fifth Amendment right to say no. That's why the framers put it in the Constitution. Because the state or the feds shouldn't be able to force you to incriminate yourself. Okay? So this is a kid. So he doesn't know, and the officer didn't inform him. I asked him if he had any weapons. Okay, here's a question. Now, he says I hadn't questioned him before he started talking. In other words, they would argue that what Karmelo said before the officer asked him anything was voluntarily given. Therefore, it is not protected by the Fifth Amendment. Now, whether it was before or after, he still should have read those Miranda warnings. And we don't know what is true. We don't know if he asked the question before Karmelo said what he said. We don't know. The body cam, there is body cam here from what he says in this report. The body cam will determine that. And the defense will get that body cam footage to see if those statements, if what Karmelo said should have been Mirandized, if he should have been Mirandized first. So anyway, he did ask him a question. I asked him if he had any weapons. Now, I want you to understand, because he was detained and because he was now being directly interrogated, this was another chance for this officer to Mirandize this kid. And there's nothing in this record that says he was Mirandized. Nothing in here to say that. So this is a violation of this kid's Fifth Amendment right, his constitutional right. And then everything that came after this violation of his constitutional right is what we call fruit of the poisonous tree. And the judge should not only suppress what Karmelo said in response, but everything he said. Everything he said in this report should be suppressed because it was extremely important for this kid. He's only 17. He doesn't know these things. He doesn't know anything about the law. He should have been Mirandized. Okay? And he didn't get that. And so he's saying all sorts of things because the police didn't Mirandize him. All right, let's go back. I asked him if he had any weapons and he said no. I patted him down for weapons while we were walking along the fence. I did not locate any on his person. I instructed the male to continue walking along the fence, which he complied, towards an area where there was an opening in the fence that led off the track. While walking him off the track, the suspect also said, quote, "He put his hands on me," close quote. Still no Miranda warning. Still no Miranda warning. Still, he didn't tell him he had the right to be silent. And so this young man, not knowing what he's doing, he's a kid. He's a kid, right? Both him and the Metcalf kid. They were both kids, 17-year-old. I believe the other kid was 17 as well. That's why this is such a tragedy. So meanwhile, Karmelo is still talking. He put his hands on me. Now, again, we don't know if all of this is true. We must, or his attorneys must see the body cam to confirm that Karmelo said any of this. So remember what I said earlier, don't take any of this to be true because it's a police report. It has not gone through the rules of evidence and so forth and so on. And the jury will not see it. Okay? I then detained a suspect. Now, that's critical. He says, I then detained him. He was already detained. You're detained when you feel like you're detained. And I mean that. When you reasonably think that you can't leave, then you're detained. And when a police officer tells you to keep your hands up in the air, you're detained. He has restricted your movement. You are detained at that point. If he got you like that, you're detained. You are restricted. You can't put your hands down. You can't walk away. You are detained. So it looks like this officer is trying to, put things in here now that he knows need to be in there. So he says, I then detained the suspect in handcuffs, handcuffed behind his back. And let me tell you, you don't have to be handcuffed to be detained. If you feel like you can't leave, you are detained. Being handcuffed is another level of detention, but it's not required to be detained. And had him sit down on the ground. Officer Ricci had arrived on scene at that time. I conducted another pat down of his person and then searched his person after he gave me consent. Never do that. Never give them consent to search you. Never. Ever. Don't do it. No weapons were located. Respectfully declined. In other words, while the suspect sat on the ground, I advised that I had the alleged suspect. Still no record whatsoever that he Mirandized this young man. The suspect then responds and says, I'm not alleged, I did it, close quote. Now that is what the officer said Karmelo said. Well, first of all, we don't know that he said that. We don't know that he said that. And if he did say it, this statement should be inadmissible. It should be suppressed because this officer did not Mirandize this young man. And this was especially important because you're dealing with a 17-year-old young man, to my knowledge, that had never been in any trouble. So Mirandizing him was critical. All right. Next, Officer Ricci and I walked the suspect to patrol vehicle number 2412, which was on the northeast gate of Carindale Stadium. I don't know how to pronounce that. As we were walking to the squad car, the suspect was emotional and said he put his hands on me. I told him not to, close quote. I'm trying to stress a couple of things here, folks. I'm trying to stress that you don't talk to the police without an attorney. I'm also trying to stress that you have the right not to talk to the police without an attorney present. And third of all, I'm trying to stress that that cop violated this young man's constitutional rights by not Mirandizing him. That is required under our Constitution. And so everything this young man said should be suppressed. Everything. Directly and as fruit of the poisonous tree. All right. I did not question the suspect about the incident while he was escorted to the patrol vehicle. See, he keeps saying that because that he knows he's wrong. He knows he should have Mirandized this kid. So he plans to just let the kid keep just saying things, and then he could argue at the motion to suppress hearing, well, it was all voluntarily given. It was a classic custodial interrogation which requires Miranda. Okay, period. This is an easy one. This is a first-year law school situation. I searched this person once again and had him sit in the backseat area of patrol vehicle 2412. While the suspect was in the backseat, I noticed fresh blood on his left middle finger. I verbally acknowledged that I saw the blood out loud so that it would be captured on my body-worn camera. So he was body camming this. It should also be noted that the suspect asked me, is he going to be okay while he was in the backseat? This young man did not know how to handle this situation. That's all. Okay? All right, I think that might be all that I wanted to show you from here. Well, here's a little more. Anthony was from Centennial High School and was sitting under the Memorial High School tent. Austin had told Anthony that he needed to move out from under their team's tent, and Anthony grabbed his bag, opened it, and reached inside and proceeded to tell Austin. And Karmelo allegedly said, touch me and see what happens. Now, all of this has not been verified. It has been reported by news media. They have been all over this for the last week or so. So this is, out there. And what I'm saying to you is, for now, we can take this with a grain of salt because it has not been verified. And again, it should not be admitted at trial because the state has to play by the rules. That's what we lawyers are here to do, to make sure the government plays by the rules that are set down by the judges. Okay, the judges have said, you got to do this, you got to do that. In fact, it reminds me of some of what's going on with the Trump administration. Here recently, the U.S. Supreme Court said to the Trump administration, you can go forward temporarily with the Alien Enemies Act, but as we've been saying, as those of us out here have been saying, the lawyers, you got to give them the opportunity to be heard. You must respect their due process rights. Okay? So that's what SCOTUS said. Temporarily, go ahead, Trump administration, with the Aliens Enemies Act, but you must, going forward, you must give all these people their due process rights. So the same here. You must Mirandize someone once you've detained them and you start interrogating them. Okay? So those are some of the things that Karmelo allegedly said. I am telling you that you should never do that. And the cops should never do what that cop did. That is, allow someone to just sit and say a bunch of things and without the cop Mirandizing them. And he knew he was dealing with a child, a 17-year-old child who I believe, again, has never been in any trouble. So the kid didn't know. He's just talking. One part of the report says that he was crying hysterically. And the cop is just letting him sit there and talk. I've represented so many of these cases. I've seen it so many times. Like in juvenile cases, quite often the police officers will go to the school so that they can talk to the kid without the parents being there or the lawyer being there, and then get them, just get them to say all sorts of things. That's why I wanted to do this video. One of the reasons why. Okay?